1045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black 14. Mark Sargent. He grew up on South Whidbey Island in Washington, and he started his career playing computer games professionally in Boulder, Colorado. From there, he spent the next 20 years training people in proprietary software. In 2014, he looked into what is no doubt the most ridiculous conspiracy ever, called the Flat Earth Theory. And through extensive research, ridiculous is Mark's word, not mine, by the way, everybody. And through extensive research, discovered that it wasn't so laughable after all. Early in 2015, he released a series of YouTube videos entitled Flat Earth Clues, which I have watched extensively over the last year, which delves into the possibility of our human civilization actually being inside a Truman Show. The dome in the Truman Show, and how it's been hidden from the public since 1956. His website is enclosedworld.com. I would like to welcome to Fade to Black for the first time, Mark Sargent. Mark, good evening, sir.
Good evening, and thank you very much for having me, Jimmy.
No, thank you, Mark. Thank you. Pleasure's all mine. And now, since this is your first time on Fade to Black, you get the our disclosure, our disclaimer, which is it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation. We're going to start as friends. We're going to end as friends. Where it goes, and let's do this. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Now, I do want. I did say in your introduction there, the words "most ridiculous conspiracy ever" are your words, not mine. I don't want people to. Okay.
Yeah, they are my words. Okay. Absolutely. Okay. No question.
So I don't want everybody to go, "What's Jimmy doing, man? Out of the gate, he's using words like ridiculous." And no, those are your words, and I respect that a lot because you came into this with another mindset, and we're going to discuss all of that tonight. But what I do want to do, I want to do the normal radio host thing, and let's talk about your background real quick for those that don't know Mark Sargent. You've got a radio program, you're a radio host. You're a documentary guy now too, as well. You've got your fingers in a lot of pies, and I've been listening to you for a long time. And one of the things is, you and I have been talking over the last couple of days, and I think you were surprised that I've been checking you out. I've been listening.
I was surprised, yeah,
and I'm excited to have you on the show. So now, let's back up to your childhood. And the reason why I want to do that is because South Whidbey Island, Washington, you're exposed to water. You're exposed to horizons. You're exposed to boats and fish and everything that comes along with water and oceans and great bodies of water. So it's not like you were raised in the middle of a desert or Wichita or you were landlocked. And I find that interesting. So take us back to your childhood and then and how you grew up, what your family was like, and were they open-minded and all of that, because software and all of that is a pragmatic, black and white, ones and zeros world. And to jump into flat Earth is the exact opposite of all of that.
Yeah, absolutely right. I grew up on South Whidbey Island, Washington, which is just northwest of Seattle, not very far at all. A lot of people have summer homes up there, and it was a fairly quiet community. But yeah, everybody knew about boats. But we're in the Puget Sound, so we only go to the ocean when we're going to do some fishing, big salmon fishing out there. But yeah, I had a lot of boat experience and windsurfed my whole younger adult life. And then I cooked. I was a sous chef there for a Greek restaurant. And by the way, my family was very, very open about everything I did. I was always eccentric. When I went to college, not only did I own a comic book shop while I was there, but I also started an illegal fireworks company, which I talked about in one of my shows, and worked in the food service. Yeah, I was doing a lot of different things at a lot of different times, and I also was playing a lot of games. This is back in the early days of the gaming, the early 90s into the mid 90s. And I won a world tournament for computer pinball in 95. And the company that published it, the developer was out in Tokyo, but the company that published it was out in Boulder, Colorado. And they decided to pick me up, and so they moved me out to Boulder, Colorado, and I played games for a living. It was a lot of fun. Played for them for 3 years as a regular employee, and then another 2 years as a subcontractor as they broke up, and then just kept teaching proprietary software to people for the better part of 2 decades.
And let me jump in. I just have to ask, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Groupies, entourage.
For Flat Earth?
No, for pinball champion.
Oh no! But I got to. It was fun though because it was different. Because back then, there weren't as many games. I mean, now there's just you can never play all the games that are out now. But back then, I got to do all the conventions. So Macworld Boston and Macworld San Francisco and E3, and I got to meet all the developers for all the cool games. So winning the tournament, that was cool. That was fun. No question. And it got my foot in the door, but it was really more of an opportunity to meet everybody else. So, my best friend, as a matter of fact, we were roommates. He won the Duke Nukem World Tournament, so it was like the two of us. We could do no wrong, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. But no groupies. No, it was strictly nerd on nerd action. But again, I'll drop a name for you. Back when I was doing it, tell you how far back it was. Some of the guys I was hanging out with at Macworld were these guys from a little company called Bungie. And we were talking. It's like, oh yeah, what are you working on? It's like, where are you working on? Because they finished up a game called Marathon, and they said, oh yeah, we got this project. We're never going to finish it though. Things too freaking big, and it happened to be Halo. Right. And then Microsoft gets a hold of them and says, oh yeah, by the way, if you move out to Seattle, you won't have to worry about money for the rest of your lives. And they said, yeah, sure. And that was the last I ever saw those guys.
It was pretty amazing how gaming. I mean, it is what it is today. But back then, like you're saying, in the mid '90s, things were just exploding left and right. And I did the same thing. A friend of mine was the sister of the owner of Westworld out in Las Vegas, and which created. I'm trying to think now. The United States-Russia World War games. What was it? It was huge. The series was big. Anyway.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and it escapes me now. It doesn't matter. But they did Blade Runner and other games. But being able to go there and watch a rendering room full of servers, 3 stories tall, air conditioning, thousands of servers. And I'm like, what do you guys do here? We render scenes. I'm like, wow, man. Yeah. And it was just exciting to watch these software guys write and go into the music room and look at, they're writing the music for it and cutting track. It was just a glorious time. And I miss it. The beginning of Laura Croft and it. Oh yeah, it was just a great time. 1995, 96.
Yeah, that was back before even people forget that before World of Warcraft there was Warcraft 3, then Warcraft 2, and then the original Warcraft, which was written by a couple guys. It was back when a couple guys could like John Romero and John Carmack could write Doom, and all of a sudden, hey, I got a Ferrari. It's it was amazing.
Oh, it shows you what Twitter does. We're going to do just what it was called Red Alert. There you
go. Red Alert.
So I show up there and I had the first version of the game. I left there with 2 shopping bags full of and I had it all, man. And Red Alert. Okay, so. Back to Boulder. Okay, so you do 20 years of this, right?
Yeah, 20 years of teaching people proprietary software. And this was not, real easy stuff to teach people because most of it was time and attendance software. There was a company out there called Unitime and then Time Center, their crosstown rival. And so it was basically time tracking software for factories, blue-collar places. And so I would fly. I did a lot of business traveled out to, just about everywhere in the country. You'd never go on vacation, and you drive out, you'd fly to a big city, but then you'd take a rental car out to a place in the middle of nowhere where these factories were, and I would teach people, classrooms anywhere from 1 to 30 people, I would basically break down the software and try to make it as simple as possible. And so that's where I kind of honed my skill between that and support. I got to learn how to problem solve, and not just problem solve, but relate the solution to just about anybody. And that's what I did for a while.
And so in 2014, so that's 1995, 1994, 2014, 20 years later, the epiphany happened.
Yeah,
so
I was just, I was doing a lot of YouTube stuff. People were starting to transition, and I'm not saying that TV is going to die entirely, because it's not. But a lot of people were spending more time on YouTube than they were on television. I was one of those people, because you can access a lot of really interesting fringe stuff. And I ran into a video by a German guy. People who know this story. Who's talking about the flights in the southern hemisphere. And he's going, yeah, they're really, really screwed up. And it doesn't make sense. But the only conclusion I came to was that the map is wrong. And I go, that's pretty interesting. I'll go along with that. And then I ran into a related story where a guy named Matthew Boylan, did a thing where he was talking on his couch. And he was saying that when he was in his 20s, he was hired by NASA to do some renderings for some mission stuff. And I was going, yeah, that's kind of cool. But he went to like a holiday party out in the Hamptons, and during a power outage, he was told, and I won't go into the story in great detail, although if anyone wants to know, I can tell it. And he was told that GPS doesn't work out in Antarctica because Antarctica is flat. And by that, they were meaning that the entire world was really flat. Not only were the maps wrong, but the world was not a globe. And he didn't get it. He's 25 and he's 38 now. And that just rattled around in his head for a while. And then finally, he started seeing the magnitude of it. And I thought, okay, that's a great, sci-fi movie of the week. I thought it was a great little story, but I thought it was crap. I thought there's no way, like a lot of people I looked at as going, there's no chance in hell this story is actually going to pan out. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to look into it. And so I started, really started delving into this theory. Some people call it enclosed world, enclosed earth, flat earth, whatever you want to name it, the firmament, Old Testament stuff. And because I thought I could debunk it. And so I started last summer, and the reason why I thought I could debunk it, like anyone who goes into this thinking they can debunk it, is because obviously there's mountains of evidence on the mainstream science side that can just crush this thing in 2 seconds. And, mountains. You just imagine, if you will, just boxes and boxes and boxes full of things on the mainstream science side that you should be able to use as weapons against this theory, because it's ridiculous. It's ludicrous. It's utter insanity. But the problem was, every box I looked into that wasn't stuffed to the gills with everything I could use, it only had like bits and pieces, fragments of things. Like, just a quick examples. I know we'll get into more stuff later, but it was like, I'll speak, there's got to be, tens of thousands of pictures of the Earth from space. Right? It should be able to find them, and then, kind of sort what's real, what's not real, and kind of get to it. There weren't tens of thousands of pictures at all. There weren't even hundreds of pictures. There was one. There was, and then I said, okay, what about the movies of the Earth rotating from space? There should be at least thousands of hours of that. And there was one, and it was only about, 60 seconds long. It was from 1990. I was going, wait a minute, that's not even possible. So the more I dug into it, and I kept thinking, it's like, okay, this box will have something into it. The more boxes I emptied out, it was like being robbed at Christmas, where you're just going through boxes and you're just ending up with just stacks and stacks of cardboard with nothing in it. Mm-hmm. And so finally, 9 months later, I wake up in February of this year, 2015, when we're talking, and I wake up and I go, and I just had it. I had that Jerry Maguire moment where, and I don't know where it came from exactly, but I just snapped. And I said, I'm looking at this all wrong. It's not. I'm looking. Here I was trying to stomp out the flat Earth, and the whole time I should have been trying to prove the globe, and I couldn't do it. I ran out of things, and so you know what? I had the narrative in my head, and I sat down and I started cranking out a series of very simple, very straightforward YouTube narratives. It's just narrative, some slides, and some subtitles are on there now. And I called it Flat Earth Clues. And I put a couple of them out there, just kind of to test the waters. I did 2 in 2 days and, 3 in 3 days. And I made 8 in the first 7 days. And I honestly thought, really honestly and truly thought that someone would come back and do what I did, would say, well, there's obviously all this mainstream stuff that can snuff this thing out. And that, I obviously was mistaken and missed some glaring detail. And here we are in December of 2015, and it has resonated so much that my stuff is being mirrored all over the place, and I've been interviewed a whole bunch of times, and no one's been able to answer the question. Why hasn't this thing been shot down yet? Everybody starts going into it against it the same way, which is, how is this thing still going? And everyone has the same reactions. But here's the question, basically, I posed to the internet back in February, which was, how do you know, for those listening out there, how do you know you live on a globe? Because you're only going to answer it one of two ways. And I know this because no one's been able to answer any different. And that is, the first answer is, well, duh, you're an idiot. We know because we saw the globe in our classroom. There's globes in every classroom. In fact, there's globes everywhere.
Right.
And the other one is, we've got the picture, the picture from NASA. And I said, yeah, but there's only one picture from NASA. And most people, that's enough, because they don't realize that there's only one picture. In fact, until July of this year, which we may or may not get into, up until July of this year, there was only one picture. And then all of a sudden, July of this year, NASA says, oh yeah, by the way, here's the first picture of Earth we've taken in 43 years. And the White House retweeted it and basically confirming everything that we had been saying for the first 6 months of this year. And so that was the question I put out to the internet. Where are we now? How do you know? And no one, and all these people, it's the most hotly debated, the most polarizing subject I've ever seen, because people get angry just like I did. I mean, I was banging my head on the keyboard last summer, saying they can't be true. Please let it be a globe. Please let it be a globe. Because if it isn't a globe, then we all got suckered. We all fell for the greatest con of all time. And but the summary, I'll give you the real summary is that what I'm saying is that the governments of the United States and Russia figured out in 1956 the actual shape of the globe, because you couldn't prove it. You can't prove it. You can be 99% sure mathematically, but you can't prove it until you send something up high enough to take a picture of it. And once they figured out that the Earth wasn't a globe, they decided to hide it, because it was just going to be a soup sandwich if they didn't. And I actually agreed with part of their decision. I still think it was supposed to be a natural process, and now that natural process is coming to fruition, and the internet hive mind coupled with social media is starting to detect everything, and it's starting to fall apart. And that's where we are now.
Okay, well, before we have plenty of time to discuss all of this, and it's going to be great. It's going to be fascinating. But let me just ask you about your position right now.
Sure.
Is it your position that you have presented the evidence and you want it debunked, or is it your position that the Earth is flat?
My position is, it's kind of both, but my position is that the Earth is flat because the burden of proof that is on mainstream science has not been fulfilled. Which, as simple as that, it's look, the burden of proof isn't on the flat earthers. The flat earthers are going into this, with nothing to lose. We put out to the mainstream science community, it's like, prove to us it's a globe.
Right.
And they can't do it. In fact, the physicists are avoiding us like the plague, to the point where Neil deGrasse Tyson shut me down very, very bluntly, for the Art Bell show. The reason I did the debate with Stanton Friedman just a couple days ago was because Neil deGrasse Tyson's team, his producer, just said, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Well, he's a doofus, so yeah.
He is, but he wasn't. But he can't. There's a lot of questions. We'll get into later. There's questions that no physicist can answer because they're trap questions, and they didn't even realize they were there.
Right. So. Well, yeah, that's a key word there, trap question too, as well. I mean, and you don't want to. What you don't want to do is you don't want to pin somebody into a corner and then slap them around and when on questions that they can't answer, because that defeats the purpose. But that being said, when you said, okay, there's, we've been convinced because of globes. And then the second point is it's what we've been told and there's no way to prove it. Right. Yeah. I get that, those two things. But you left out a third thing.
What?
eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
There's that.
what we see.
Yeah.
Okay, you have what we've been told. I get that. And then we have the globes in every classroom. And I get that too. I do, because I've seen the globes.
Sure.
But the third thing is eyeballs.
Yep.
And so you're trying to ask people to
take a picture.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
okay.
that you're asking people to change what they see.
Got it.
So, and that's a difficult thing to convince people of. But and we'll get to that after the break. But the last thing as we set everything up here is this: how has this taken hold? What I mean, it's like it's your, like you said, it's just so ridiculous, but yet it is like a snowball rolling downhill right now.
Yeah.
How has this happened?
Oh, do I have time to answer that before the break?
We got 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're absolutely right. For people that don't understand what we're talking about here, if you did a search on YouTube back in February and you just typed in flat earth with no filters on it, you may have gotten 40,000, 50,000 hits. You type that same phrase, flat earth, no quotes, just type it into YouTube now. I think as of today, it's at like 2.2 million. And you don't get that sort of resonance without, if it's bunk, if it's BS, you don't get that sort of expansion.
Yeah, it's insanity. The number is huge.
It's what I was trying to tell people. The analogy is like it's like a big old werewolf that just keeps getting bigger, running down the countryside, and everybody thinks they've got a silver bullet that can stop it. But then they realize, they look in their gun and they're going, "Oh crap! There's no silver bullets in here." And the werewolf just keeps hacking up people on the way down, and keeps converting more people on the way down. The reason why it's gotten as big as it has, two reasons. One is because no one is coming forward from the other side to address it. Again, no silver bullets, meaning, and we'll go into, I've had professionals, both in the private sector and the military, who have come out and said, look, every instrument we use says it's flat. Nobody else has come out. I mean, the closest we got was Stanton Friedman. And he just didn't do his homework. He still believe, because some of his friends are astronauts, he's going to believe everything they say. The other thing was, for some reason, it just seems to ring true with a lot of people, especially women. Women don't exactly fit into the conspiracy world that much. I mean, yeah, there's some, but the demographics are skewed heavily male. I get almost as many emails and phone calls from women as I do men. Women's intuition. They're saying there's something about this thing that just gets you. It just grabs you, because when you're looking at it and you're breaking it down, there's just way too many unanswered questions that the flat earth side proposes that the mainstream science side doesn't address. And unfortunately, really one of the only weapons that the mainstream science side has is math. And you're going to lose a lot of audience if you're going to try to convince them with trigonometry. They're going to say, well, the radius, circumference, you're going to measure this and that. It's not going to help you because all the stuff we're throwing out there is visual. It's easy to understand. The Flat Earth Clues, I'm going to take credit for part of it, and that was I broke it down. The Flat Earth has been around for a while. It's not a new conspiracy. I thought it was staticky, though. I thought that the message that was out there, because there was only a few guys doing it, I thought it was a little staticky. So I just turned the dial just a little bit, and it got clear, and everyone was saying, what is this music? I've never heard of such a, and people were treating it like it's a brand new thing, and it is not. But one of the big things is it's so physically huge. It is such a big conspiracy. It encompasses everything else, and you'll have to readdress every other conspiracy you've ever thought of. It's the mother of all conspiracies that just everything fits inside it. So, and if it is true, it's a Twilight Zone episode, waiting to happen. If it is true, then of course it breaks down everything else, because then it's like, okay, if they lied about this, what else did they lie about? Because this makes all the other lies more credible. Because it's so amazingly big. At the same time, people say, no, it's too big. You can never hide the world. You can't hide the whole world. I said, well, actually, it's surprisingly easy if most of the work is done for you before you get there. It's not like it's not like human beings hid the world. We just kept the lie going. the world was hidden by a force bigger than us, and some people want to call it divine, some people want to call it something else, but we'll get into that later.
Well, everybody loves to say "what if," and everybody loves a good conspiracy, and the more complicated it gets, where it's tougher and tougher to prove, then you've got something, and everybody loves a good mystery, man. I mean, that's what we do. That's what makes the world go round, Mark. So,
I see what you did there.
All right, now when we come back, we're gonna start this conversation off on a few different questions, and also I want the audience to go and do something and prep for the show for a little bit. I want everybody to go to Google Earth and go to search Fort Amador, Panama, because that's where I lived for a number of years down in Central America. And I'm going to ask Mark to do the same thing, and we're going to discuss what I used to see down there as a young man. And I think that is pretty interesting. So anyway, we'll do that in a little bit. When we come back, we got to talk about gravity, what's on the other side, what's on the flip side of the flat earth. We're going to talk about that. And also, everybody in the world, all those professionals out there have to be involved in some level or another with this conspiracy and lie. And we'll talk about that too as well. This is Fade to Black tonight. Mark Sargent, it is a full flat earth evening. More with Mark when we come back after this short break. Everybody stay right there. All right. Welcome back. Merry Christmas, everybody. Tonight, very special guest Mark Sargent is right here. We're discussing the flat earth and this phenomena. It has really, really taken off. Tomorrow night, Ben Moss and Tony Angiola are going to be here from Hangar 1 presenting new evidence on the Socorro, New Mexico UFO incident. But tonight, it's all about Mark Sargent. Now, Mark, I don't even know where to start, so I'm just going to pick something and then let's just run with it.
Sure.
But the first question probably should be gravity. Yeah. And gravity still, is not explained. We don't know a whole lot about it. Ask any physicist, they're going to give you a different answer. Yeah. And I understand why we can't see it, we don't understand it. But we know that, well, hold on a minute. I know that something is making me stick to the ground, right? Okay. Yeah. So let's start there. I know that there's this electromagnetism and there's that side of it. I don't understand how that would really work. Yeah. Because I can't get a magnet to stick to my skin, right? I could be wrong. Maybe they do. But.
No, you can't right now.
Okay, so how explain that part of it? Help me understand.
Sure. And gravity, and not to steal too much from the Matrix, because in the Matrix movies, they say, when they say, something love is just a word. Gravity is just a word. It's just something we latch on to. Yeah, if you drop your pen and it falls to the floor, well, something's either pulling it down or it's pushing it down, and we call it gravity. And I actually believe, if it is, I used to believe in the spherical model. I completely understood that, and that is if you have a sphere sticking in the middle of the vacuum of space, the density of the sphere has its own gravitational pull, and things on the surface will try to pull down, towards the center of this sphere. However, on the flat model, it actually doesn't change too much because like you were saying, mainstream science really doesn't do that well a job at explaining gravity. It's very confusing to a lot of them. And in a flat model, I treat it like this. If we are in an enclosed system, a big, giant Truman Show, thousands of miles wide, then gravity is pretty much what you say it is. And by that, I do mean sort of like a molecular magnet. So, because we do this in simulations now. We've been doing it we were talking about the gaming world, and I know people give me crap. It's like, oh, he's going to mention the gaming stuff again. But in the gaming world, that's exactly what we do, because we have to define gravity. And really, we treat it like a molecular magnet, which is, okay, all know that what magnetism is now. You take, a piece of metal that attracts other pieces of metal, and you do metal on metal. But if you have a molecular magnet, you can pull everything, including your skin, including all organics, including water. You name it, you can pull it. You just create a molecular magnet underneath the surface and set it to whatever you want. If you want a guy to weigh 100 pounds, if you want him to weigh 300 pounds, you just set everything appropriately. And that's how it works. And the reason why this model seems to be kind of working better with the flat side than it is the globe, the big reason that people are, again, trying to get their heads around, no play on words there, is the water problem. And that is water on a sphere. Now, I do believe that water can stick on a sphere in the emptiness of space, but only if the sphere isn't moving. Unfortunately, if you believe in the globe model, we're spinning in 1,000 miles an hour. And people are saying, well, the water's, sticking, on all the oceans because of gravity. I go, yeah, that's fine. But the merry-go-round principle has to be taken into effect. And that is, on the outside of a merry-go-round, you're trying to be thrown off. We've all been there in the playground when we were younger. But if you're in the center of the merry-go-round, it's sunny skies. Everything's beautiful. You just turning in a circle. Nothing's pulling you anywhere. So the question is, why are there oceans near the North and South Pole if we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour? Because water moves very, very easily. I'm not saying all the oceans are going to condense down at the equator like Saturn's rings, but it is going to kind of bunch up, and you're going to have bald spots on the North and South Poles. So why isn't that happening? Scientists avoid that question like the plague. And they're saying, well, no, it's gravity. I'm going, really? Because gravity is going to counteract centrifugal force entirely? Not buying it. Not buying it.
Well, okay. Let me back up, though. Back to the gravity. What's keeping me here?
Yes.
We can discuss the oceans in a second.
Sure.
Because I have a whole idea with that too as well. I'm just trying to keep myself from going insane. Okay.
Sure.
That's the thing. Because if all of this is true, then we are in the Matrix and everything is really friggin' screwed up and my life changes. So I'm trying to keep from doing that right now.
Okay.
So anyway, let's back up. What is keeping us stuck to the flat Earth?
If it's a flat model, then in my humble opinion, I think is of some form of molecular magnetism. Now, you could say that it's still density. In which, because some people say, well, don't go into it too technical. Maybe it's just that we're living on a much, much bigger planet or a big square box or whatever it is, and that there's this huge mass below us, and the mass is actually just creating a physical gravity, like it would with a sphere. And the only reason we don't see a curve is because it's so large that there is no curvature. We're on a much, much bigger surface, which may have a curve or may be, square or triangle or whatever, but our part that we're on is perfectly flat. So it could be mass, it could be density, sure. But if it was me, if I was the creator, I'm just saying I'd make it adjustable, and I would use some sort of molecular magnetism. It wouldn't be that difficult. I mean, the unified field theory, we all know it's very, very possible. So why not convert that into some sort of gravity machine? I'll throw one more out at you, and that is I'll give you an example. In our limited civilization, because back in the 90s when we were doing the early games, we were designing gravity wells. Right. Granted, it was only for 2D and limited 3D things, within a machine. But we were designing gravity wells because people are saying, the Coriolis effect and water spinning one way or the other way. And we were doing torque, clockwise or counterclockwise torque on a gravity well.
Well, you would have to in gaming for realism.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that. But it is also ones and zeros. So you could.
It is also ones and zeros, yes.
Right. Now, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but so I just want to address this really quick. If we're flat and we're here and there's a dome above us and that's what's going on, the question is obviously what's on the bottom side, and is there gravity there, or is there nothing there?
That is a very interesting question. I'm really glad you asked that, because and I, again, when I was trying to troubleshoot this thing, I had to look at every aspect of it, because I knew questions like this were going to come up. People are going to say, well, what's on the other side? And the problem is that we don't know. And by that, I don't mean that we don't know kind of like a haphazard we don't know. I mean that we've only dug the deepest hole human beings have ever dug is 8 miles, which is 12 kilometers if you're Canadian. 8 miles is not very far. And yet, when you look at the mainstream science books, they say, well, it's about 4,000 miles to the core of the Earth, and here are the bands. Here it's red, then orange, then yellow, then it's that white, hot, milky center. I was going, how do you know that? You only dug down 8 miles. Well, we did seismographs, and we pinged this and pinged that. I'm going, yeah, but you don't know because you only dug down 8 miles. I mean, that's like knocking on a coconut for this first time and saying, well, judging by the woodiness of the sound, we're going to define the completely interior of the coconut. You don't know jack, but every science book has that cross section, which looks like a cross section of a gobstopper, showing the Earth and all 8,000 miles of it, from one end to the other. I'm going, well, why don't you just say you don't know? And if you look in Wikipedia, all the geologists say, oh yeah, we're extrapolating, we're projecting based on this, based on that. But that's their nice way of saying we have no freaking idea what's below us. But people don't like to see a globe with a big question mark in the center of the graphic. They don't like to see that. So science says, well, that's what we think it is. That's what it is. And you give that a couple generations, but it's now common knowledge. That's what it is.
Sure. But to be fair, you have the same questions, even if it's flat Earth.
You're absolutely right. But remember, the burden of proof isn't on us. I'm saying to be fair, for me, and I talked about this in one of the clues, and I have got some crap for it. But I said, look, everything in a flat model, from what I'm looking at, has to be artificial, especially if there's a firmament, especially if there's a dome. And by that, I mean everything from the jet stream, which is really just a giant air conditioning system, the underwater conveyor system, which might as well be jets in a hot tub. And people are saying, well, volcanoes and the magma system, that has to be real. That has to be organic. I said, really? You're going to leave something as volatile as that to just be random? Think of if when you were in science class, the spider that was kept in the terrarium. You had the light bulb, you had a little thing of water, you had some sand. You may have had a mesh screen and all that. Nothing was organic in that spider's world. Now, that spider had no idea what was going on. He has no concept of how the light bulb works and how the water got there and how the air's getting in there. Anything that's going on, why the lights turn off sometimes and why they come back on. No concept. But the point is, nothing is random. Nothing is organic. So when I say, look, even the magma systems are possible, a magma system that funnels magma to the volcanoes, of course, that's got to be artificial. The big reason is you don't want to have a chance of everyone knows that supervolcanoes, can cause a whole lot of damage. One supervolcano, that's it. Our civilization's done. You get a sort of nuclear winter scenario that it would wreck everything. So for me, below this, I think there's a magma system, and I think there is a system of mechanics involved that deal with the volcanoes.
And like I said, it's kind of equal on both sides. We've only gone down so far. That's it. Yeah. The questions are there, whether it's flat or whether it's round, hollow. It doesn't matter. We don't know. Yeah. Now, I want everybody to jump to this Panama map. I don't know if you pulled it up yet.
I did. I'm looking at pictures of it right now.
Okay, cool. Even if, let's say it's flat, let's go. Today I'm sold. I'm buying flat Earth groceries now. Okay, I'm okay. Sold. Let's say, but why does it even matter? I still have to work. I still have to send my kids to school. Still got to pay taxes. I still drive the same car with gas in it. Nothing changes. So why would it even matter?
That's an excellent point. 1 out of 15 or 1 out of 20 emails I get ask that very question. It's like, who cares, right? I still got to go to work in the morning, and work sucks. That's the argument. It's like, well, yeah, you may have to go to your sucky job tomorrow, but everything will change, even if you don't want it to. Even if it's like, I'm just going to go into my factory and it's never going to change. It's like, really? Because a lot of other things will change around the world. And here's the big thing of why. And I did a clue on it called status quo, which was human beings do not take to being confined well. They obsess about it. It's not like a wildlife preserve where you put a buffalo in it and, it's 1,000 acres or whatever, and they just don't care if they see a fence. If human beings see a fence, all they're going to care about from now until the end of our civilization is everything regarding that fence. Take your big five religions. We'll just do the religions right off the bat. The big five: Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity make up about 80% of the world's population. All of them have been looking for proof of intelligent design since their inception.
That's right.
Imagine if they found evidence of that. Evidence of intelligent design. Now, I'm not saying it's the hand of God out there, but they certainly are going to. Absolutely. Because the Genesis 1:6 or 1:7, depending on where you're looking, it talks about the firmament, the barrier that separates the waters above and the waters below. Every religion's got their own version of this. If this gets confirmed in any sort of way, religion gets a huge shot of steroids, and science starts backpedaling in a big, big hurry. Again, the immediate effects, aside from NASA being closed and the biggest class action lawsuit of all time, every astrophysics department, every astronomy department, in every university in the world closes. Your major sciences, the ones that survive, geology, hydrology, archaeology, biology, take your pick. They've got to retool to the new model. Textbooks have to get thrown out or revised, and there's so much chaos. On top of that,
well, hold on. That you bring up an excellent point, though. Every university, every scientist, every textbook, everybody is in on it. And so how can that secret have been kept? I mean, I'm talking about people have been in on it.
No. In fact, that's the best part of the trick. The best part of the trick is nobody was in on it because it was so old that all the textbooks were written before it was discovered. And by that, when you go into the clues, and I just do a quick backtrack, I believe fully, and again, you can watch the clues. There's other people who have talked about it. I didn't invent the whole concept. I just made it really clear, which was that I believe the higher powers, the authority, and that by that I mean the super rich, the royals, and the bigger world governments were looking for this thing. But if you don't have the technology to look for it, meaning basically until the internal combustion engine happened, you got wooden ships, steam trains. You can do nothing, especially down in Antarctica. So you send your best guy down there from 1928 to 1956. That's Admiral Byrd in the United States, the youngest admiral of all time. He's flying around the ice in his own planes, and the Russians are helping from 1928 to 1956, looking for this thing, looking for evidence of this, because somebody had the old maps. This is refound, rediscovered artifacts that we're talking about here. And in 1954, and again, the clips, we're so lucky to get them, that are on YouTube right now, of Admiral Byrd going on television in 1954 on a CBS affiliate. And he goes on the Longines chronoscope, and he basically lays it out and says, look, apparently Antarctica is made out of money, and we should all just make money now there for the next 100, 200 years. And then, of course, Murphy's Law kicks in, and he finds something. And whatever they find scared everybody. And remember, all the big countries were down there still trying to rebuild from World War II. You had Soviet Union, you had Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, Chile. Take your pick. And they all left unilaterally after Operation Deep Freeze in 1956. And they started making the treaty possible, which is now the Antarctic Treaty. Basically, and again, this was one of those tipping points. It was not only a tipping point for me, but for a lot of other people, because it just went against everything we know, because money and greed and power rule the world. And in 1959, all the governments that were down there said, you know what? No one gets to go down to Antarctica with a corporation to make money ever. Ever. What are you talking about? So if I could, started, Marklandia and created my own country and I became an economic power, they would put a piece of paper in front of me saying, oh yeah, by the way, on top of trading with the rest of the world, you have to sign this agreement. You don't get to go down to Antarctica. Really? How long? Ever. It's not even up for debate. No treaty's ever been in place this long unilaterally over that many nations. It's not even up for debate until 2041. And basically what it says is no corporation, no matter how much money is involved, you really think an oil company with as much lobbying power as they have, they can get in a national park. They could start fracking in your backyard next week if they wanted to.
That's right.
And they not only don't have the power to go down there, they don't even have the power to petition. You'd think you'd go to the New York Times and just start running stories saying why it's great for Exxon to go to Antarctica. They aren't even allowed to do that.
Yeah, I get that. I totally do. But the intention of it was it was the last untouched, untarnished thing on this planet that we've managed.
Sure.
Well, hold on. Let me just say we've managed to screw up everything, right? Yeah. So it was the last little spot that we haven't screwed up yet. So let's try to keep it that way. And do research and figure things out instead of now. And the flip side of it is just it's just too treacherous and too expensive. Look, I know Admiral Byrd talked about mountains of coal down there, that we would have coal for forever. Sure. But you got to get to it. And it was right at the South Pole, too, as well, that mountain that he was referring to.
Oh, sure.
And to get to it and to get boats, go through the ice and everything else, and the expense of dragging it and mining it and bringing it back, it was just too expensive to do. So,
and I would agree with you. Back in the 50s when gas was less than 30 cents a gallon. But as gas got more and more expensive, the crude oil, once that got more and more expensive, full well there was going to be mission creep there, especially from other nations. It wasn't just America that got shut out, remember. It was everybody.
Everybody, right.
It wasn't in science. Science, as much pull as they have, and now, of course, there's a secondary and a third treaty, that's environmental. And people are saying, well, it's an environmental issue. And I'm going, okay, first off, there is no indigenous plant life. There's no indigenous animal life. There's just ice and snow. There's no ancient ruins that we know of, anything like that. And two, Greenpeace wasn't even formed until 1971. And that's just two guys and some tie-dyes and some rafts. That's all they had. So in 1959, environmentalism wasn't even a word. It was, people, they would drill anywhere. They didn't care. It's like, they didn't even know the dangers of radiation in 1959. They were still trying to work that out, which we'll get into later. So,
yeah, right.
So the point was, I've never seen a treaty anywhere, and people are still looking, through all, distant treaties, especially between nations, especially, between Russia and America. Now there's like 52 nations that are signed on to this thing, and everybody's agreed. And again, it's kind of like the old Shakespeare saying, "He doth protest too much," and that is. But this goes the other way, and that is, it's not that they just can't go down there; they can't even talk about going down there. Who does that? Who can't spin it? What oil company exec isn't going to go, get his friend, in some newspaper, some magazine, some media giant and say, look, I need to get down there. I think there's an investment opportunity, and then they just start running articles. No, the story isn't even allowed to happen. There's only, as far as I know, there's like 5,000 people down there at any given time. They're all military. You can go down there if you want. And I must be clear here. If you, the average person that's listening, you want to go to Antarctica, yes, you can go. You can pay about $10,000 to $15,000. You can go along the peninsula, get your picture taken with some emperor penguins. Everything will be fine and great. Go on a nice little raft and get really cold. But there's an invisible line out there. Not like Area 51, where you have scary signs and people in SUVs, looking at you with binoculars. There's an invisible line out there. Plus, there's the Antarctic Defense Force, multinational Navy, state-of-the-art weapons technology. What are they protecting? Who are they possibly protecting this against? They don't want, the place just screams, go away.
Well, it does help you feed the conspiracy. It absolutely does. I mean, I'm with you on that. Let me ask you this, Mark. Yeah. If I got you a ticket, sure, and you went up on the International Space Station and cruised around, and came back down, and you saw that the Earth was round, do you change your mind?
Sure, I'd change my mind in a second. Okay. Of course, the odds of that happening are slim to none. But
that's why you're a guest on this show. You've got an open mind. I respect that.
Well, I do have an open mind. Of course. In fact, I was one of the guys that, I looked at the moon stuff, and then I looked at, I was like a lot of people, because some people say, well, I don't believe in the moon stuff, but you're not going to take away the ISS, the International Space Station, away from me. And and I thought that too. I was going, well, yeah, the ISS has got to be real, right? And then I started looking at the interior footage. Again, you want to look it up on YouTube. The best videos are called ISS Hoax.
I know. I've seen them.
The interior footage shots, not the exterior footage. The exterior shots aren't that terrible by comparison. But the interior shots are B-movie production grade stuff. And I can't figure, that's the part that's bugging me, because they're making mistakes that even a rookie director wouldn't make. and I just like perming the hair of the women so that not only does it not look natural in zero gravity, but it looks just damn stupid. The fact that there's no hatches between the compartments, the fact that they're walking around in khakis and socks and polo shirts with apparently no regard for anything bad that could be happening. The fact that there's gravity shifts and people just can't tend to be bumped here and there for no apparent reason. And the idea now is that okay, pretty much everything, if it's not on green screen, it's being shot on their simulators on the Vomit Comet. Look that up when you get a chance.
Well, I've had many shows about that, and just so you understand, I don't know if you know, but look, I'm not even sure if we went to the moon. I've had plenty of debates about that, and I question everything when it comes to that.
Oh, good. We won't talk about that.
Okay, but in some respects, we're on the same page, but then. I have a friend who, and I'm sure you've got friends that are pilots. I have a friend, literally fighter pilot, right? Yeah. Okay. Naval Academy graduate, Marine fighter pilot. Okay. Yeah. The real deal guy. Sure. And he's somebody that you probably know. And when this discussion comes up with the flat Earth, he's like, come on, man. No. And it just he enjoys a good conspiracy. He likes the debate. He likes the conversation. It's great to have hours of conversation talking about this. But he's just like, come on, no, just no. I would have been right with you because there was a guy, when I was starting to interview, because I asked, by the time I got to Clue 10, I was asking for anybody to come. I wasn't asking for, a NASA whistleblower, although that would have been nice. But anybody to come forward in the professional sector, anyone was dealing with large measurements. And I had a flight instructor, owned his own flight instructor school out of Iowa. And he came forward and said, he took him a while. He did some research first, like a lot of people. Before he comes forward, he wasn't going to make a snap judgment. And he comes on record, he was not anonymous, and says, look, he goes, every instrument that I use, when I teach students how to fly and all the pilot friends that I know, everyone he knows, they're basically confirming the same thing, which is everything that they fly with tells them they're flat. And then the question comes up, I go, well, how in the world do all these thousands of pilots all over the world not get this? How did they miss this? And he goes, you know what? He goes, pilots, it's such a precision profession that they're so busy doing so many things with their checklist, and they're looking at this. If they're not thinking about taking off, they're thinking about landing, and they're always looking at instruments. Always, always, always. That's the last thing on their mind. He goes, and really, even if it crossed their mind, do you think they'd take it seriously for a second? And which is why, I put in one of the clues, I said, because a lot of people have asked me, are all the pilots in on it? I go, no, not at all. But even if you had like a long distance flight guy, a guy that was crossing major oceans, a navigator, even if he thought the map was wrong, which is so far down on the list of possibilities, even if he got to that part where he says, you know what, this only makes sense if the map's wrong. But if the map's wrong, it's like the Earth is flat. If that was the case, who is he going to tell? Who are you going to go to? If you're gainfully employed in the aircraft industry, you're going to go to your company. You're going to go to the FAA. You'll be good. I wasn't kidding when I said one of the clues. I said you might as well. You would be better off telling them that a UFO was chasing you for the last 2 hours, because that's the sort of response you're going to get. You're going to be benched. You're going to have a desk job, and you're never going to see it. You're going to see a cockpit again. So, and of course, your friend, the pilot, everyone, including me, believe me, when people listen to it, it's like, look, I never thought in a million years I would be talking about flat Earth in 2015. But your first reaction, if you do not look at this with just audacity, if you don't look at this and say this is crazy for the first couple hours that you're looking at this, there's probably something wrong with you. You know what's funny? I'm so wrapped up in this conversation, I rolled right by a hard break.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's how good it is. This is Fade to Black tonight. Mark Sargent. We're talking about the flat Earth. More with Mark right after this very quick break. We'll be right back. All right. Merry Christmas, everybody. Tonight, Mark Sargent is with us. It is a flat Earth evening. Excellent conversation. Very interesting. Tomorrow night, Ben Moss and Tony Angiola of Hangar One are going to be here, my good friends We're going to be talking about new evidence in the Socorro UFO incident. But tonight it is Mark Sargent. Mark, I want to, before we run out of time here, and it's already blown past,
Sure.
Let's go to this Panama map. And one of the interesting parts of the flat earth theory is ships on the horizon. The most fascinating, and is probably because I'm not an astronaut. It's one of the things that I have a lot of experience in. I learned to sail, open seas, boats, and everything. So with that, I want everybody to, and Mark, to open up Google Maps and go to Panama, Central America. And then when you switch to the satellite view, you can zoom in, go to the south side of Panama, where Panama City is. And once you zoom up on Google Earth to the entrance of the Panama Canal, you're going to see right there, as you zoom in, you're going to see Amador light up, and then you're going to see this thing called Panama Bay. Amador is where I lived, okay? I lived right there. And as you zoom in on Amador, and you zoom in, you'll see on the north side of Amador right there, you see a golf course, right? Okay, that's where my house was. And if you zoom in enough, you can see my home where I grew up. Okay, so anyway, now, at the end of Amador, you see this long causeway, and it connects to 3 islands that are connected by a road. Okay, those are defense installations, but now it's all commercialized because we gave away the canal. But when you zoom in, you'll see this dotted line that forms on Google Earth. Do you see that dotted line, Mark?
Maybe. Oh, crap, I'm in Bing. Darn it.
Okay.
But go ahead and describe it to me.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't want to break your...
That dotted line is the route of the ferry, okay? Now, and then south of where it says Panama Bay, you go directly south, you'll see an island called Taboga. That island was 10 miles away from my home, okay? And you could see it from my house. You could see the tip of the island because it's over the horizon. But we'll get to that in a second. Now, Mark, what I want you to notice, when you're looking at, if you can see the words Panama Bay and Taboga at the same time, and you're looking at the island and you're looking at Amador, you'll see all of those little white dashes that are all over the place. You see these white lines.
Okay.
If you zoom in on any one of those white lines, you will see that those are freighters. Those are huge ships, humongo, right? And you can zoom in on, pick a ship and zoom in, and you can see that those are huge ocean-going freighters. And of which, I'm going to count here, just sitting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 30. Let's say 50. There's 50 of these freighter, ocean-going ships that are out there. Now, during the day, this is what I would do, because I lived on this little island-like protrusion at the entrance of the Panama Canal, I could walk over to the edge of the Panama Canal and watch these ships come in and out of the canal. And you can imagine at that age, I'm 14, 15 years old, it's like the coolest thing ever to see. I mean, it's just humanity's advancement of technology to have the Panama Canal built and watching these huge ships go through there. Now, what I would do is I would look out and I wouldn't see the ships. You could see these 50 ships that are sitting out there, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 miles away from my home. I couldn't see the ships. But if I sat there long enough, and this is what I would do as a kid, I would watch the next ship pull into the canal. And what kind of ship was it? Was it a destroyer? Was it Navy? Was it a submarine? Was it a freighter? Was it tall? Was it new? Was it old? But I would do that, and I would watch it appear slowly over the horizon, and I would see the top of the ship, and I'd see more of it, and then I would guess what kind of ship it was, and then I would watch it go through the canal. What I didn't know, that over the horizon were these 50, 60, 70 ships waiting to come into the canal. And one day, I ride a ferry from where I lived, Fort Amador, out to this island, Toboga. If you zoom in on Toboga, you can see it's just a beach. It's an island. There's like 500 people that live on it. It's not that big of a deal. There's a hotel there and a nice beach. And you can see the dashed line coming in, and it says Toboga Ferry. And it would land there. So I'm on the Toboga Ferry, and I'm riding from my house over here in Amador, and I ride and as we started coming up and approaching the horizon, then I saw as we got closer that there were 50, 60, like a parking lot of freighters that I never saw from my house. Okay, and it's only 6 miles away, 7 miles away. And I was always taught as a kid sailing. My dad had a couple of sailboats, a catamaran and a regular sailboat. My neighbors had sailboats, and we sailed. And I was always told, if you're standing at sea level, the horizon's 6 miles away. And if once you're up on a sailboat like this, and now you're 6 feet higher above that, then the horizon's going to be about 12 miles away. And it works like this. And they, I was told different things that you would be able to see 12 miles away further over the horizon. So I get on this ferry and I'm riding out, and then all of these ships appeared that I couldn't see from my house. And there was another thing that, and I know this from experience. Remember, we said earlier in the interview, eyeballs. Forget about the globe. It's just my eyeballs and what I saw. And what I used to do, this island out here, Toboga, which was about 10, 12 miles away from my house, I could see the tip of Toboga. And what I used to be able to do is I could duck down and put my head on the ground, and I would goof around with my eyes, and I would watch Toboga disappear. And then I would stand up and I would see Toboga, and I used to, I guess Toboga must be about 12 miles away because it's on the horizon. And that's what I was told. And then I would get on a boat and I would sail around and see Toboga appear. And then as I sailed back home or was on the ferry, Toboga would slowly disappear, and I would only see half of the island. It's a mountain-shaped island. But all of those 50 freighters would disappear. And so back at my house, I knew that over the horizon was this parking lot of freighters that I couldn't see. And I was always tripping on that. I thought, wow, so that's the circumference. That's it. That's how the horizon works. And I learned something. And so how do you explain that to me? Because that's my own personal experience. And when we talk about flat earth and I know what I used to do, it doesn't make it's like my brain melts because of what I saw, not what I learned, but what I saw and what I experienced.
Of course. And this was one of the first things. In fact, it is probably one of the most common arguments that is thrown at us. The other one being people say, no, I can see the curve from a plane. So which I put forward, fine, if you do see a curve from a plane, please take a picture of it, put it on your laptop, hold a straight edge up to it. If you still see the curve, email it to me. I will gladly talk about it on air. No one's ever done it. But when it comes to the ships, because that argument, in fact, physically, it's one of the oldest arguments, because people say, well, if it's flat, it can't be flat because ships will sail off the edge. And to a lesser degree, we all know that ships are going to disappear off the horizon where you only see the top of the mast by the time it gets to a certain distance. Now, that's interesting because I actually bought into that as well. I was like, well, because I've seen videos, right, that appear to show ships going off in the distance and they shrink. But here's where it got weird, because now things have changed over the last 10 years, especially with camera technology, especially with zoom technology.
Yeah, but I want to stop right there. I'm not talking about cameras or lenses or telephoto. I'm talking about
what you can see with your own eyes.
Me on the open ocean sailing towards Toboga, and then these 50 ships, huge freighters, appeared.
Okay. Without using camera technology, I can tell you there are movies out there, but we won't. Eventually, someone's going to want to see a recorded version of what you saw. But the short version is the simple word refraction. And by that, I mean, when you're looking at it, of course, we all think we're seeing a ship sinking over the horizon in the distance. But if you review if you look close enough, and again, I don't necessarily recommend people staring on a beach for hours and hours or on a boat for hours and hours without at least trying to record it, or you're going to go mad. But if you stare at it long enough, what you're going to see is something very, very interesting, and that is it starts to blur from the bottom up. By that, I mean, we've only seen this when we compare picture by pictures, and we line them up next to each other. It's not that the ship is actually disappearing over the horizon. It's as it's getting further and further away until it gets to the vanishing point, the water starts blurring the hull to the point where you actually can't. So yes, the top of the ship is the only thing that's left, but that's only because the bottom of the hull, even though the ship is still there, has just been blurred to a certain degree. And we only know this because, and I know I'm going to cheat here a little bit, if you take any camera now and zoom in after you've lost it with your eyeballs, and you said, oh, okay, the ship's gone over the horizon, that's the big tell. And that is, okay, you watch and you watch with your eyeballs, and it's gone. Right? Therefore, if it's gone over the horizon, it doesn't matter what you use. If you use a telescope, a telescopic lens, whatever, your camera phone, it doesn't matter. If that ship's gone over the horizon, you should not be able to pull it back. And you take your lens out and you zoom, or your telescope, which is, if you're not going to use electronics, and all of a sudden, hey, there's the ship again. Yeah, the bottom's distorted, but the point is you shouldn't be able to see that ship because it's gone past the horizon. So why can you still see it? So
with that, again, that's lenses and cameras, and there's all kinds of things that could be involved there. And I agree that is what you see. But I'm talking about when I'm on a boat and I'm sailing right here from my home at Amador to Toboga, those 50 freighters, these are not little toy boats.
Sure.
50, a parking lot like at Walmart, full of freighters that goes on from, and I'm sailing, and and then boom, once I cross a certain point, I'm looking at 50 huge freighters that I don't see from my house, and I know it's because there's a curve there. I mean, how do you explain
do you
that?
Know there? Do you say it because you know there's a curve there?
I did it. That's what I did it. I did it. That's all. That's all.
If I could, again, I know it's tough for you to take my word for it, but refraction is the answer here. And we only know this because of what we've been filming lately. You can see it with your
okay. I get it, but I hear you. I understand. I've seen all of the videos, and I get that because I've seen mirages. I know what happens in long distances. I've seen it. I get that. But if you and I are sailing on a boat to Toboga and we see that, refraction doesn't come into the conversation.
Well,
it can't. It can't. It's impossible.
I beg to disagree in that case because unfortunately you're not going to be able to show the viewers without recording it some way, and recording.
But if you and I were on that boat together, we don't need to record it. You and I are going to see it together.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, but now with what I've seen, or what I've been researching over the last 10 months, I will look at it with different eyes. I'll look at it and compare it to what I've seen on video and say, oh, yeah, there's the bottom of the hull blurring. And as it gets off, it's going to hit the vanishing point. So even though the top of the ship looks like it's going to the horizon, all it's doing is going to the vanishing point. No different than railroad tracks going off into the horizon. Yeah. It just gets smaller and smaller.
That's right. That's right. Except for what I'm talking about here, these aren't ships that are moving. They're parked.
Sure.
They're not moving. They're parked. Yeah. They're not moving. They're not driving away or sailing away. Driving.
Yeah, but you're moving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We're going with the curve of the earth, and then as we come up over the top, boom, there they are.
No.
I
hear you. I know what you're saying there, but if you're going to throw that at me, I'm going to throw out.
I'm not throwing. I'm just saying.
No. I mean, I'm going to use for every one of those. I mean, it's good. I like it. That's actually fairly new. No one's actually said that one to me, but I'm going to use the missile instructor guy who was the guy from the United States Navy who came forward and said, "Look, I'm using a 2-inch beam radar, and we're painting targets for the Sea Sparrow missile system at 60 miles." He goes, that's 2,000 feet below the curve. There's no way we should be able to paint a target. We're not shooting it up in the air. We're not bouncing it off the ionosphere or anything like that. We're using a straight-up beam radar. Without that beam radar, the missile does not hit its target. It's not auto-guiding.
Right.
And he goes, you can't hit a mirage at 60 miles, you're not hitting a missile anything at 60 miles, and we do that repeatedly, and that's just the declassified distance he's giving me. That, and of course, he uses night vision to see ships at 30 miles, and he goes night vision doesn't lie. He goes, when you're looking out there, he goes, you should not be able to see a ship at 30 miles with night vision if it's a mirage, because some people, will throw the mirage thing out at me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, right.
But no,
right,
I like your thing. My short answer is refraction. You're moving, the ships aren't moving. It's the opposite of what some of the videos that you've seen going from the beach, which is when they go from the beach, it gets farther and farther away. In this case, you're actually coming up on it. If you recorded it and then ran it in reverse, I'm sure you'd see the same thing the videos are showing. But that's just
right. Now, okay, let's put that aside. Again, we're going to run out of time. Who built the Earth? Who built?
Wow.
Now.
That's a small question.
Yeah. Check this out. Look, I would love to have Richard Dawkins come on this show. I would slap him around like a little girl, but I didn't say that. I don't want to offend the little girls out there when I'm talking about comparing them to Richard Dawkins. Right. But I firmly believe that something happened here, and it wasn't by accident. What divine, call it God, call it the creator, call it some genius, call it E.T., it doesn't matter to me. It's too much of a miracle that we are here, and we are like we are. Now, and you're right, the question is too great. Yeah. But if somebody built some kind of sapphire crystal dome over planet Earth and had some kind of divine design for us, somebody did it somewhere. Who did it?
Okay, first off, I'd like to address what you were saying earlier, and that is, it's too big to the point where even if, for example, the United States government or the United Nations happened to reveal one day on television, it said, oh, by the way, they parked themselves out by the edge of this thing with next to an alien ship, and the alien ships came out and they said, we did it. Most of the religious houses of the world would still say that it was divine intervention and intelligent design, and the aliens had nothing to do with it, and they were lying. That being said, it feels like who did it? Growing up in a Christian home, I've got to go with with the divine, the God aspect of it.
It's fine, totally fine.
But that being said, did God use any special tools? Did God subcontract it out? Are there layers? Is it simple to think that after this we get to see God, or are there layers above this that we have to get through? Because there could be, let's face it, there could be an advanced civilization running this thing, or and also we're definitely not the first tenants to rent this apartment by any stretch. There's
You're right about that.
Hints of hints of ancient civilizations all over the place, which of course lends back to the first question of, who was the first civilization? Who were the first people? And if it was the first people, is it a jailbreak scenario? And then you get back to the fallen, which leads back to religion. For me, do I think it's divine? If it's not, I don't, then you're going to have to start looking into your definition of divine at that point. So that's what I think.
So, okay.
You want to ask why?
Well, I think you gave me like 5 different scenarios, though.
Okay.
All of those could apply, and
Sure.
I agree with each one of them. But I'm saying, who built it? I mean, was it an experiment? Why did they do it? And what was the purpose? Because now we're dealing with construction of a building, not necessarily a species.
Well, if it's a construction of a building, and it does feel a lot like it. I mean, the systems involved here are really, they're giant macro versions of what life imitates life and art imitates life. But think about it. The jet stream, a big circular air conditioning system, the magma system, heating system, the water pumping system for the oceans, and the subtle things, the mechanical things like adding 3% salt solution to the oceans, which prohibits exploration by like 95%, reducing the temperature out at the outer barrier to where icebergs form at 15 degrees and then, create the most hostile landmass of all time on the outer edge, reducing the atmosphere when you get to the upper edges so you can't go very high without, passing out or dying. All these different things, were they constructed to when I looked at it, I tried to see, it's like, is there everything has so many layers of efficiency to it that it was perfect by design. And I'm not being sentimental and saying, well, God makes everything perfect. No, I'm saying it is an amazing design for what it is. The only flaw in it, and I don't even think it's a flaw, is that any civilization eventually is going to figure it out. Every civilization, once they reach a certain level of technology, is going to figure out the constraints, and at that point the game really changes, or the outcome changes, because then they're not acting naturally anymore. So for me, what I try to tell people is it feels a lot like an education system more than anything, because people say, well, what is it? What are the reasons? Well, it can only be one of really three reasons. It's either entertainment, education, or confinement. Those are like anything. Mm-hmm. And if it's entertainment, well, not that many people are having that much fun. A lot of people suffer. The Matrix thing. We define our reality through misery and suffering. So I don't think it's entertainment. Confinement, if it's confinement like a jail, why hide the bars? Why not make it a little more obvious that it's confinement? I mean, honestly, we didn't even know we were confined until, I don't know, just now. And so, but then you get to the education part, and then it kind of reminds you of school, because school is kind of confining. You're there, you're not supposed to leave. You don't want to, get caught playing hooky. Well, I actually used the word hooky. That dates me. You're there. You kind of have fun at school sometimes. Sometimes, in a pep assembly here, pep assembly there. Yeah, that's kind of fun. But most of the time, you're trying to learn something. You're trying to better yourself. And that's what it kind of feels like, when we're here. I mean, yeah, a lot of people don't learn anything. They're just dumb as rocks. And they go through their lives, and it's like, maybe those people aren't real to begin with. Maybe they're just background material. But a lot, but that's what it feels like. It feels like an education system, not just an experiment. I think at this point, yeah, I mean, I think every civilization goes through a process of their own unique qualities. Everyone, like the arts, I said that in one of the clues, where the arts seems to be unique. We all create our own paintings, our own music, our own sculptures, and those are, I think, are probably unique from civilization to civilization. But the rest seems to be a learning process more than anything else. And I think it was supposed to be natural. That's the big difference here. Let me close the statement with this. I think that that we were supposed to figure this out. Maybe not, not in the 1950s, maybe like in the 1970s, maybe the 1980s, through natural exploration, not that forced stuff with Admiral Byrd. And then once we figured it out, then the natural process, then, things change. But unfortunately, the people that were looking for it happened to be, the authority and the high elite government. And once they figured it out, they made a decision pretty quick, and I can understand where they made it. They said, yeah, we're not going to let this sort of chaos, because at that point you're going to tell people, oh yeah, by the way, we were wrong 500 years about a lot of stuff.
Right.
So, but you should still listen to us because we're the authority. And it's like, even though there's this giant structure we're living in, we're still top dog. You think people are going to buy that? No. People are going to be going, oh yeah, I don't think so. We don't have to do anything you say ever again. And yeah, it'd be a mess for a while. And they said, you know what, let's just hold on to this for as long as we can. And well, that's about 60 years.
Okay, we've got 2 minutes to a break. And so when we come back after the break, obviously we have to talk about the famous United Nations map, and we'll discuss that. Yeah. But before we do, we've got 60 seconds here. What about meteors? How are they getting through that sapphire dome? Are they opening up a door?
Yeah, it fit in 60 seconds. My friend, co-host Jonathan, always likes to joke. He goes, is it really different than somebody opening the fish tank and chucking a few rocks in? And I go, well, it's a little different. And I go, look at the Book of Enoch, the book that was never canonized in the Bible. They talk a lot about the mechanics of how this thing works. So yeah, I think meteors are real. Yes, I do. Do I think they're artificial? Yes, I do. Throw in a piece of metal ore at speed, let friction do its work. Try not to aim for any major cities if you can help it, which is why that Russia thing got a little dicey. And then that's it. Are meteors us? No, I think it's absolutely the creators.
Interesting. Well, that's an easy out, though. I understand.
What else do you want me to say? I don't think the U.S. government is making the meteors. I think I think the dome is permeable. and I think there's openings there that they can use to do it, because it's a great little space reinforcement thing, because meteors have to come from space, right? I got to remember, this place was set up as an illusion. They wanted us to think it was a sphere. At some point.
Okay. Let's take that break right now. Let's get it in. So, faith. Then faith is what you're saying, Mark, and I'm with you. You. Okay, there it is. Right. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Mark Sargent is with us. This is a full Flat Earth evening right here on Fade to Black. More with Mark when we come back. Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Twitter's on fire. We normally do 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 tweets during a show. I think we've blown that out of the water tonight. I got to thank Mark Sargent for that, for creating dissension amongst the troops. Nice job, Mark. Everybody's fighting, and that's the way it should be. Now, okay, Mark, we've got to address, and I find it very interesting, and when you brought it up, and I went and looked and went, okay, there's something here. I get it. The famous United Nations map, and that compared to other things, so we're going to address that. But then after I thought Mark's got me here. Okay, he's got a good point, but then I thought about it, and it's this. You can't have a 3D logo. Okay, you can't have a 3D logo globe or it's square. It doesn't matter. It can't be.
Sure.
So you have to represent everything that is on all sides of the earth and all the countries that are represented at the United Nations. And the only way to do that will be to flatten it out and show it like it is. And that's where I went, wow. Okay, all right, maybe I've answered that part. But then there was the question of why isn't Antarctica on that? And I thought, okay, Mark's got me here too. I had to think about that. But at the United Nations, they don't go, okay, we're going to take a vote here. And what does the members of Antarctica say, right?
Yeah.
It's not a country.
Sure.
And it's not represented. And so then I thought, okay, that kind of answers that. But then there's the Mark's got me here about the Antarctica sort of being represented in a circular form on that map too as well.
Yeah.
And so there's that. Okay. That's my take on it. We can't have a 3D logo, and Antarctica is not a country, so there's no reason to have it represented there.
It's not bad,
right? That's where I'm going.
That's not bad. That question had been posed to me a few times, and actually, I was a map fiend for a while. So for me, I always thought it was unusual that the UN, when they designed their map, their flag in 1946, why they didn't use an actual physical globe. Now, I know on a globe, if you're only looking at it, you can only get so many countries on one side. Yeah,
you're gonna piss somebody off.
Yeah, but you could do it with 2 globes or 3 globes, or there's a couple ways you could pull it off. I would use 2 globes because one, most people don't know, on the globe model, excuse me, if you turn the globe a certain way, the Pacific Ocean is so huge that it actually, if you were looking at it from the side, you'd think that Earth was a complete nothing but water. So you could actually do it with 2 globes side by side. But you got a point there. And leaving out Antarctica, that was very, very unusual. And in fact, I thought when they made the flag, they kind of jumped the gun in that case, because they thought that, okay, we're going to make it in 1946. Remember, Byrd didn't do Operation Deep Freeze until 1956. So at that point, they said, okay, we're just going to, put. So they knew ahead of time. And the wreaths, if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about here, the UN flag is just a squished globe. So if you took your hand on top of the North Pole and flattened the globe out and filled it in to be a perfect circle, you got the continents, North Pole at the center, the continents kind of spread it out organically. But unfortunately, Antarctica, you got to do something with. Now, honestly, you could have done something as simple like with the AE map, which was a lot older than the UN flag. Why not just make the ring around the outside? Because they couldn't. It's too much of a dead giveaway. It would get too many people thinking. The wreaths, the little Greco-Roman wreaths around the outside, subtle and somewhat elegant. So I liked what they did there. But leaving it out entirely, but things, they also don't mention it. You'd think on the somewhere online they'd say, oh yeah, by the way, the wreaths are actually representations of Antarctica, because even on a globe model, Antarctica is big. even if you believe in the globe, Antarctica is bigger than Australia when it comes to being a continent. And yeah, it wasn't colonized or anything, but people were already, there was a lot of nations already doing stuff down there. And you'd think it would have been taken into consideration by somebody, because remember, back in the 1940s, it was still under dispute. Everyone was, even Byrd hinted that people were already kind of staking claims out and saying, oh yeah, everyone's going to be here and carving this thing up like a turkey. So to ignore it entirely, it's a little suspicious.
Yeah, it is funky, but
I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't
it's funky, but the only answer that I have to that, which is to me the obvious one, it's not a country and it's not represented at the United Nations. Therefore, there's no need to represent it on the map.
I get you. But it is, you got to admit, it is very, and I know you've looked at it, it is interesting that the map is used by, it is the only, out of all the projections out there, if you look in the Wikipedia list of projections, it's the only one that is used by multiple groups. And then by that, I mean the USGS, the United States Geological Survey, the United Nations flag, and the Flat Earth Society. That I think is really, really weird, because why would the Flat Earth map, the UN map, and the USG map be completely identical to each other, with the exception being the UN flag leaves out Antarctica. I thought, and of course the projection's 1,000 years old, which is also interesting. Why is the USGS using 1,000-year-old projection for anything? I thought it was very, very interesting. It was, I didn't spend that much time on it. I know I built a clue on it, but it was one of those things that kind of makes you scratch your head and going, what's going on?
Well, I had to go find answers for myself because I thought that they were all good points that you brought up. So that's how I resolved it, because I need to wipe my brow and go, phew, okay.
The Earth's probably still a globe, and I have friends that still do that. It's like they're on the fence, but they're not there yet. It's like, fine, hang on to the globe for a while. That's cool.
Okay, let's address the 1,000-mile-per-hour point that you make, and there's a couple of things that I think are really, really cool that I even me as well. Anyway, I was going to say as dumb as I am, but that I can't figure out. One of them is, a helicopter takes off and floats, and it can turn around and land on the same spot. It hasn't gone anywhere. Why isn't it, at 1,000 miles per hour at a different position? That's a bit funky to me. One that I'm not a pilot, I can't address. But the 1,000-mile-per-hour thing, that we're moving, and we should be feeling the effects of that, if that is real. That is another point altogether. So let's talk about that. The 1,000 miles per hour.
Yeah, it's a lot of speed. I'm going to steal from Matt Boylan here a little bit, because he was saying that the Earth rotates at about 1,060 miles at the equator, if you believe mainstream science, and it's also spinning around the sun at about 60,000 miles an hour. Combine those two, the fact that the solar system's moving, that's a lot of speed. But 1,000 miles an hour, it does some interesting things, because science has to deal with some questions that people, the common person on the street is going to ask. One is, okay, how is the atmosphere dealing with the fact that we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour? Is the atmosphere going with us? And, is gravity locking down the atmosphere? If it is, it also, locking down the oceans. And then you also have that weird thing about the planes, because people brought up, now I didn't bring it up in the clues, because I tried to leave as much math and numbers out of the clues as possible, because I try to, make sure that Joe Lunchbox on the street would be able to figure it out. And but it's an interesting question. And that is, if you have a plane that goes, the plane's either going, if you're going east to west or west to east, it's either going with the spin or it's going against the spin. So a plane goes from like Los Angeles to New York. Is gravity holding, because you're saying, shouldn't the Earth be, when it gets up to a certain height and speed, shouldn't the Earth be moving? Shouldn't be escaping some of the gravitational forces of the Earth? If it's spinning, up in North America, it'd be 700 miles an hour. But shouldn't that hundreds of miles an hour be factoring in there? And as mainstream science will say, well, no, gravity's keeping the plane, it's relative, and it's keeping the plane going. I'm going, yeah, but it's doing it both ways. It's locking it down with and against the spin. It's really, really interesting. And, it's not a satisfactory answer for a lot of, from mainstream science. Again, the burden of proof is on them, but, and I still have to come back. I know I talked about earlier, which was 1,000 miles an hour is a lot of speed at the equator. And the first thing that's going to move there is liquid. And 1,000 miles an hour centrifugal force, you're going to, I'll throw a slightly different thing out to you. You may or may not have heard this one, which is centrifugal force means you're going to try to be thrown off the merry-go-round, which means you're going to be, it's going to counteract you being on the merry-go-round. So if you're on the North Pole, being the center of a merry-go-round, you're spinning at 0 miles an hour, right? So no centrifugal force. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you weigh 100 pounds. But if you go down to the equator, that 1,000 miles an hour centrifugal force, you should weigh slightly less because centrifugal force should be trying to fight gravity. Now, I'm not saying you're going to weigh 90 pounds or even 99 pounds, but it's going to be measurable. And nobody's done that test, and that would be a really, really interesting one because, and I have no doubt that you're going to weigh the exact same on the equator because there is no equator because there's no sphere. It's not there.
Well, that's interesting, and somebody should do that test. But but there's one thing that with this idea, and especially with liquid water, that it gets a little funky for me, and that is if you are feeling the effects of 1,000 miles an hour. Well, we're here in North America, so it's a different speed, but it doesn't matter. And you accelerate in your car, right? Yeah. You feel the acceleration to the seat, right? Yeah. And then you stabilize and you catch up with the inertia.
Yeah.
Your coffee is now level.
Yep.
It doesn't spill on the back window.
Yep.
Okay, and that's where the 1,000 mile per hour argument or thought, I should say, not argument because that's wrong.
Sure.
That thought doesn't apply. And if you are on a plane flying at 500 miles per hour, you can still walk up and down the aisle. You've caught up with the plane. Your coffee's not spilling on the person in back of you. It's level in the cup. And if you dropped something in the coffee at 500 miles an hour going against the Earth spin or going with it, you still have centrifugal rings. So that idea doesn't hold water.
Hold water.
That's where it gets a little funny for me because it's only my own experience. That's all. I'm not talking about theory.
No. You're absolutely right. Same on trains and all vehicles contained units. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The question is, what happens in an open area like atmosphere, like an open atmosphere? I'll take one more at you, and that is because somebody else brought this up to me. I didn't, most of the information that comes to me comes from listeners at this point, and they said if you're only spinning at 700 miles an hour at up in North America, and you're spinning another 300 miles an hour faster when you get down to the equator, wouldn't the human body be able to sense some sort of difference if you're used to the 700 miles an hour spin, the centrifugal force, up north? When you get down to the maximum centrifugal force, wouldn't it be kind of like, like a lesser degree of like sea legs? When you get down there, it's like, hey, whoa, something's different here.
Right.
And I thought, wow, that's actually not a bad thought. Pretty interesting. But I didn't focus any of those. The clue, it's a tough one, and it's even tougher to prove. But yeah, I like it.
Okay, let's again. You can't. I have the same problems with answering these questions as you do, so it's okay. So now let's. Yesterday, winter solstice happened.
Yep.
Okay, how do we deal with the seasons on a flat Earth? The winter solstice and the Earth's tilt. And its rotation around the sun, and that all adds up. The math works, and we don't have issues with that.
Yeah, that's the part that's going to start blowing people's minds because we haven't really touched on some of the bigger objects in question, and that is if the Earth is flat. Actually, I'm surprised you didn't ask it earlier. What exactly is going on with the sun and the moon? Well, hold on to your hats, folks, because the sun. Let's put it this way. God may have created the sun and the moon, but NASA was the ones that told us how big they were and how far they were away. In this model, the sun is not 93 million miles away and the moon is not 237,000 miles away. They are right in here with us. And by that, if this thing is a giant His giant building, giant structure, giant sound stage. The sun and the moon are flying above us like a mobile above a child's crib, around a center point. And by that, how the seasons get dealt with is the sun moves around above us like a finger on a dinner plate, only up in the air. And the circle isn't the same every time. So it gets, it's a tighter circle during one part of the season and a wider circle when it gets out further. The moon and the sun appear to be, from these models, appear to be about the same size. Could be 30-something miles, could be a couple thousand miles up. We're still trying to work out the trig on that. But yeah, they are. And the sun also, I'll throw a weird one in. You probably heard this one already, which is the sun and the moon apparently don't have much of a relationship at all. Meaning the sun is like an incandescent light bulb, but the moon doesn't reflect the sun's light. The moon appears to be its own light source, like an LED light, like a cool laser. And by that I mean it's not just colder at night. It's like the moon is giving off some refrigeration light. And we know this because when we do tests, and there's videos out there, they're not hidden, the moonlight is actually colder than the moon shade, which shouldn't be possible. It should always be colder in the shade, right? It's 100 degrees in the sun, it's 90 degrees in the shade. Then why is it 50 degrees in the moonlight, but it's 55 degrees in the moon shade? If you take a magnifying glass to moonlight, why does it get colder? It shouldn't do that. Not if it's reflecting the sun's rays. So anyway, sorry, I was answering a whole bunch of things at the same time.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the seasons, though. I mean,
because the sun. All right, the seasons are okay. In a flat model, the sun.
Wouldn't it be the same all the time if it was a flat model?
No, because the sun isn't. If the flat model is like a dinner plate, the sun isn't taking the same track around every time. It's like a needle on a record player, on a record, where as the record gets in, as you're playing the record, it goes further and further in, and then eventually when you change records, it goes out. That's what it's like. So, depending on where the sun is creating the seasons based on its circular trajectory. But I also don't think for a second that the sun is the only heat source. The seasons are also a combination of what's below us as well. And the jet stream's also partially responsible, and the underwater conveyor system. But the seasons, as far as the sun, being lower and higher in the sky and the angle, that's just on its circular path. And the fact that it doesn't take the same circle every single day. There's video. I'd love to be able to give you more of a visual than that. But there's videos on it. They give more of a detailed explanation graphically.
Okay. It seems to me, well, even if that was a given, and we could move past that, and it's tough. That's a tough one because now we're bending theory. But if that actually happened, then wouldn't and the Earth was flat, there would be no nighttime. Wouldn't everything be illuminated all the time? Or would we see the sun all the time? Or are you saying that the sun is now going somewhere else? And I don't know.
Yes, you're absolutely you're right on both counts. Yes, the sun is going somewhere else. It is going away from you. But also, the sun appears to be a directional light source. It is not. Remember, you got to throw away just about everything you've learned up until this point. For those of you listening out there, the sun is not this big omnidirectional ball of fission.
It's a flashlight.
It's basically a flashlight or a floodlight.
Right.
So when you're looking at it, when it's over you, it looks like a big circular orb. And you got to remember, a lot of it is what you're told. You're told it's like, look, it's the center of the solar system. It's this big ball. And that's how everyone says. It's like, well, if it's this big ball, we'll be seeing light all the time. And there are no time zones. We'd all be lit up all the time. No, there's physical models. In fact, I got a physical model that was sent to me recently that showed perfectly how it was. And the guy had a certain little LED, little spotlight, one for the sun and one for the moon. And in fact, I've got a video on my channel that shows, and this isn't a computer simulation. This is a real thing going over the flat Earth, and it lights up the time zones exactly like what they are now. In fact, things tend to work a lot more efficiently in a flat model, believe it or not, than they do in a sphere model.
Well, okay. So then if the moon is flat,
Yeah.
How come it appears to be flat with a telescope? And I know you've explained it with the curvature of lenses, and that's how it appears curved.
Yeah.
Am I right on that?
Well, there's so much enthusiasm in this movement right now that there's actually heated debates about exactly if the moon is two-dimensional or if it's three-dimensional. I believe that it's kind of both. I think there's a three-dimensional object underneath, but I think it's projecting some sort of two-dimensional image. For anyone who wants to look it up, look up lunar waves. You're going to see some really, really weird stuff out there. But the moon appears to be its own. Wait, what was the question again?
Is the moon flat?
No, I don't think it's completely flat. I think it's got some three-dimensional qualities to it, which you'd want anyway, because it's so it's the most viewed object of all time. So you want to put as much detail and as much time as you can into this thing. So making it purely 2D, it's not what I would do. But what's weird is when you're looking at it again, the camera technology nowadays is really caught up. Again, look up lunar waves and watch the resolution issue, watch the refresh rate, the band go through the moon, and then say to yourself, what exactly am I looking at here?
Have you looked at...
It could be two-dimensional. It could be, but I'm not going to lose sleep if it is.
What about Saturn and Mars?
Oh, yeah, all the stars treat the...
Are we the only thing flat?
Yes.
Okay, so...
Yeah, I think we're the only thing flat. Now, we may be the only thing that's substantial as well, meaning you're in a giant... This thing is no different than a terrarium combined with a planetarium. You go into a planetarium, what's real up above you? You know, the stars look three-dimensional and they look real. Everyone that looks through telescopes at Venus and Saturn, yeah, they look like spheres, but the only people that take any detailed shots are NASA, and I don't want to get into, them being the gatekeepers right now because we don't have enough time. But yeah, the stars could be physical objects. They could be three-dimensional objects, but they are way closer. They are right inside here with us. They are your stars, nobody else's. Same thing with the planets. The only two objects that are really in debate right now are the sun and the moon, and they appear to be giant objects that float above us. Now, are they two-dimensional or three-dimensional? Again, we're still trying to work out the details on that.
With let's not name names, and we're not going to go there.
That's all right.
Hold on. You don't want to, and I don't want to, so let's not go there. But there are other guys out there with the flat Earth theory that say that the telescopes or the curvature of airplane windows, the curvature of binoculars, those are what are causing us to see curved objects in space or at a distance. And when I listen to that, that is where everything just kind of falls apart because, and I'll give you an example. Yeah. If I hand you a basketball, you and I play we play some 21. Yeah. With a basketball. We know that we're holding a basketball inflated with air. Yeah. And you go 2 miles away and I look at you in a telescope. I know that I'm looking at a sphere. And I know that your head is round too as well.
Nice.
So the telescope is not turning you concave.
No.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I know, and I've heard some of those as well, and I don't really follow it. I mean, for me, it's kind of it doesn't help us, but it doesn't really hurt us that much because again, it's like a weird gold rush out there. Everybody's trying to find the brass ring that's going to put it all together. They're trying to find something that everyone's going to understand, and people are reaching all over the place. What we can tell you with, and I know we don't have a lot of time, is that at the very least. Because again, the flat Earth movement is splintered, and there's lots of different people doing different things and different tests, and it's fantastic to watch. The enthusiasm is just incredible. But what we do know is the world is definitely not what you think it is. The people that are in charge here, they're hiding something from you in regards to where you live, which is why everyone has a stake in this. As far as the agreement on exactly what, we're still trying to hammer out the shape to this thing. It's just fantastic to, it's the life of Brian right now. We're trying to define the meaning of the shoe that was dropped.
And what would you do? We're going to be against a break, and if you don't mind, you want to hang on for another 10 minutes after the break?
Sure,
a little overtime.
Sure, why not? Yeah.
If one of the other proponents out there that shall remain nameless, what would you think about sitting down and discussing with them and trying to get some type of unified front together so everybody's not getting different pieces of information on this?
Oh, I don't mind. I mean, if that's going to happen anyway, when this thing started out, and I don't want to go into great details, the camps were forming almost immediately because everyone wants to have their model be followed exactly. And I was a lot more open-minded when it came to that. I said, look, I'm just going to keep looking, and because we don't know for sure. All we know is, we have kind of a rough shape of what, and we know that mainstream is absolutely wrong. So we're still trying to figure it out. So don't try to turn it into one direction and turn it into a religion, because it's not. But yeah, we're eventually, we're already talking about having a flat Earth con next year. How does that happen?
I'll be there. Okay, what's the tallest mountain that you have been on?
Probably up in the Rocky Mountains, up near Estes Park.
Okay, that's pretty good. You know what? That kind of sucks though too, because actually Denver, the Mile High City, is a misnomer, because when you get there and you look at the mountains, you're like, those are hills. But it's because you're already up that high.
You're already up that high.
Right. That's right. You live in Boulder, of course. You know exactly what I'm talking. I remember the first time I got to Denver, I thought I was going to be looking at Mount Everest. Yeah, and you're looking at little.
It's like, but people forget you're already at 5,000 feet. So it's like,
right. So, well, anyway, what do you? I have been to, and I've got some really cool photographs way before I ever thought of flat Earth. But when you go up to Mammoth, which is 12, almost 13,000 feet, and you can get to a point when you're at the top of Mammoth, there's no trees, and you can see an unobstructed view 360 degrees. You can sit there and rotate.
Cool.
And I am serious. You can, from there. Yep. All you think of is, man, look at this round Earth. You don't think flat.
No.
Why is that?
It's because it's because of what we were raised on.
Okay.
More than anything. Again, you put a globe in a first grade classroom. That's it. You don't even have to tell them anything. The teacher says, oh, yeah, it's where you live. 12 years later, that's in your head, which is why, again, people have such strong emotional reactions to this, because it's not like any other conspiracy where you can I can ignore that and it's not going to change my life. No, right. This will change your life. And, so we want to see the curve. Okay. Absolutely. I want to see the curve.
Let's take a quick break and hang on. Mark, we just can't end here. So let's do a little overtime. This is Fade to Black tonight. Mark Sargent is with us, and it has been a full flat Earth type of evening. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black, and I'll be back right after this. Stay with us. Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Mark Sargent has been, what an amazing conversation. Flat Earth. Tomorrow night, Ben Moss and Tony Angiola are going to be with us from Hangar One, talking about new evidence that they have got for the Socorro, New Mexico UFO incident. That is a not-to-miss show. Thursday, no show. It will be a repeat. We are going to start our holiday weekend. With that, let's go back to Mark. Mark, I've ignored Twitter tonight. There's so many questions, and now we're out of time. But there is one that kind of stands out here, which is, why are we the only flat construction? Why didn't they build another one out there, and why can't we see any of those? A sister version of us. Oh
yeah, and that has been talked about for a while now. And you're absolutely right. No, I don't think for a second that we're the only construction of this, because you're going to build one of these, you're going to build multiple in all different stages, which is the really fun part. Because if you were an advanced civilization or the creator, you would want to see all different aspects of how civilizations evolve. And so, could there be another one outside of us? You bet there could. Now, can we reach them? Because some people have said, well, no, the elite, the authority, they could probably reach them. They could probably figure out a way and, with special planes and get over there, or, maybe across the ice. I was going, I don't know, because if that was actually the case, you'd see a lot of really, really rich people to be faking their own deaths trying to get out of here. Sort of like that movie with Jodie Foster and Matt Damon, Elysium, where you'd have a utopian. If there was another civilization like ours, in another structure that was kind of the utopia version of it, a lot of people would be trying to get it over there. So do I think they're over there? Do I think there's other versions of this? Yes, I do. Do I think we can get there? No, I do not.
Well, one of the things that we didn't get a chance to touch upon tonight, one of my favorite subjects, is Hollywood movies and your presentation on that side. I can almost I have to step back and go, okay, Mark's got me here. And we didn't, because you're right, but there's a lot of other reasons why I think that you're right too as well, that have nothing to do with flat Earth.
Well, Stanton Friedman came, when I was talking to him the other night, because we finally got someone to debate this thing, because yes, and thank you, by the way, for mentioning that, because it was my first clue, touched on the lack of Hollywood movies in this aspect. And some people says, well, no, it wasn't his strongest clue. I was going, it wasn't supposed to be my strongest clue. It was supposed to get you thinking. And that was the lack of evidence or lack of things that should be there that aren't. And that is, we all know Hollywood's made movies about absolutely everything. If there's a nickel to be made in Hollywood, I mean, for God's sakes, Paul Blart had a sequel. Yes, I mean, there's movies, there's crap movies. Think of all the movies that just went straight to DVD with all the money that was sunk into them. There are no movies of the moon missions. They don't exist. And that is just stunning, considering it's the greatest achievement of all time.
Yeah, man's greatest achievement. Yeah, you know what? Actually, I brought that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, it's okay. Go ahead.
I don't know if it was you that influenced me on that thought, but I might have had this thought before Clues came out. I don't know, but I did. I questioned it, and I questioned it with a guest the other day. I was like, look, I know you think we went to the moon, but how come we've never made a movie about it? It's just like the crazy. Yeah. There should be 50 of them.
Oh, yeah. But, and they're not. The closest we ever came was The Right Stuff. We've only made 2 movies that even scratched the surface. One was The Right Stuff in 1983, and then Apollo 13 in 1995, which is basically just 4 guys or 3 guys flying around in a capsule.
And no moon stuff.
No, nothing laying on the moon. 1983, The Right Stuff, and that's what, Stanton Friedman had not watched it, by the way, but he had said, well, they haven't made a moon movie because it'd be boring, and no one would go see it. I was going, are you high?
Well, let's not bag on Stanton.
Well, no, it's not that, but I mean, I know I've heard that from a few people. They said, well, no one would go see it. I'm going, The Right Stuff was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, would have won Best Picture, except Gandhi won it.
Right.
It was set up for the sequel. I was in the theater, and I'm old enough to have seen it when the 3 hours into the movie ran 3 hours and 11
minutes. 20 minutes, yeah.
And at the end, you get that first low Earth orbit, right? It's like he became the fastest, human to circle the planet. Roll credits. And I was going, that's it.
You know what? At 3 hours and 11 minutes, and it was still too short. That's the amazing thing. But
it was set up for the sequel, and it never happened.
But, and this is where the but comes in.
All right.
Yesterday, China releases their statements that their Chinese rover finds a new kind of moon rock, and they've released these pictures. And if what's the intention of stating that we've discovered a new kind of moon rock if we're not even there now?
Yeah. Okay.
I don't get it. Is there a financial advantage to this? Is there a reason, or is there really a rover from the Chinese on the moon right now checking out rocks? No, there's not. The rover that supposedly landed, the Chinese, for those people who don't know, Chinese supposedly sent a rover like the Mars rover, which, by the way, shouldn't be running for the last 7 years. The Chinese supposedly have a rover on the moon since 2013, running around there. It's not in the Sea of Tranquility, not taking pictures of the American flag, snapping it in two, knocking it into things, not doing any of that crap. No, every story that is released by NASA or the European Space Agency or Chinese or JAXA, take your pick. Every story is meant to do one thing and one thing only, and that is reinforce the globe. Now, yes, they make money off the budgetary concerns. In fact, NASA just got approved for its 2016 budget. Was that little sum, $20 billion, right? So there's some money to be made here. What are they spending it on? I have no idea. Maybe some deep underground bases. We're not sure. But every story that you see from NASA is a fake. It's a con. All it's there. It doesn't really matter if you believe it or not. It's supposed to be interesting to do one thing, and that is, hey,
There may be a face on Mars. Thanks, Richard Hoagland. You're by the way, you're on a globe. Oh, look, here's a picture of Pluto. Oh, by the way, you're on a globe. Things on Saturn. This probe's going here. Oh, we found water here. Oh, here's a super Earth over here. All these stories are completely varied, and they're running them more and more, and they're there to do one thing, and that is to subliminally reinforce that you're living on a globe. It doesn't matter what the story is. It does, because all they care about is that you're thinking about outer space. Once you think about outer space, you're immediately confirming the same thing every time. 100 different stories, same base concept, and that is there's a story out there, but you're here on a globe.
Now, what before I ask the obvious, which is what is next for this movement?
Yeah.
You had made a statement earlier. Well, you made it a few times. The proof is on them. Well, I would kind of have to say that in this case, the proof is more on you guys. You guys, what you need is a bullet for your gun. You need something definitive. Right now, everything for you right now was, well, if it okay, yes, and I get that, and you've asked the right questions, and some of them are tough to answer, but you're going to have to cross the line at some point.
Yeah, and we're building that. You're absolutely right. The next step right now is, and it's been happening over the last 2-3 months, which has been amazing to watch, and that is the professionals that have been coming forward, some anonymously, some not anonymously, that are talking about this. And again, we're waiting for the big one, but I mean, so far we've got a U.S. Navy missile instructor, a Navy submarine chief, artillery radar operator, sniper instructor, flight instructor, industrial engineer, career surveyor, international shipping expert, corporate travel agent, structural engineer, Army radio operator, and a German pilot. All in the last 3 months, they've all come out and they've all said the same thing, and they all match each other's stories. And they're all saying everything that we're looking at is telling us the same things. One is there is no curve that we can measure. 2, the Coriolis effect. The Earth is not spinning. And 3, the maps are wrong. The combination of those 3 things all points to the same thing. And as we're building more and more people along these lines, nobody's coming out against us. You'd think that we would have somebody at least from the military. Right now we've got Navy and Army and Marine Corps. You'd think we'd get people that would be coming forward and saying, no, there's a curve and here's why. This guy's totally wrong. Nobody's, we get some shots every once in a while in forums, but nobody's going on record and saying it. And so, so right now we're looking for the magic bullet, like you said. I'm looking for Air Force. I'm looking for ex-NASA. And of course, when those people come out, then it's game over. Then of course, things start crumbling.
Well, what you have to do, I mean, there's no question. You have to get to the edge of everything, videotape it, and go knock on the dome where it meets the,
that would be nice to do. Unfortunately, again, I'm still
or get arrested trying.
Yeah, the line from the Matrix still applies here, and that is they're guarding all the gates, they're holding all the keys, and because that was what they locked down in the 50s. They locked down the outer edge and they locked down the upper edge almost simultaneously, and they've been holding it for 60 years. And so right now it's getting exciting, but it's great. Social media is helping us a huge amount. And again, I'm sorry for those people who are hearing this for the first time. I know your emotions are running high, and there's going to be fights in the forums, but that's how it starts. And then, a few days from now, or even a few weeks from now, all of a sudden you'll wake up one day in bed and go, "Holy crap!" Oh,
okay. And one last thing, and then we'll wrap this up. It's been an absolute thank you, by the way.
Oh, no, my pleasure. It was a fun show.
Now, when you look out an airplane window, yourself, what are you seeing? Because I know what I see. I see cities coming up over the horizon. I'm trying to figure out what's coming up next, and I'm in amazement because I'm looking at the Earth, and that's what you do. You look out the window, and it's great, and it's wonderment. But I also see curve. What is? How do you explain that? And what is it that you see?
Well, I did a lot of business travel, and of course I wasn't looking for it. And so I'm not going to say that, every time I was like, oh, it was absolutely dead flat. Although I'll do 2 things here. One is, again, anyone that's out there doing business travel, it's not hard to do, especially with camera phones. And that is, if you think you see a curve, take a picture of it. Take it home. Put it on your laptop or whatever you have at home, and put a straight edge up to it. Let me know if you still see the curve. If you do, email it to anyone in the Flat Earth movement or post it somewhere and draw attention to it, because we're in 10 months and no one's done it. But the other thing was, and my friend Jonathan, I give him credit, which was something that we've kind of talked about recently, because now that we got some structural guys that are doing some 3D modeling, and they're saying that actually, given the Earth being 8,000 miles in diameter, you would have to get up pretty darn high to actually see a curve. And by that, I mean way higher than any weather balloon. And so what they're basically saying is even the weather balloon shots that we have where the flat earthers are latching onto and saying, well, that's proof that it's flat. Even that's not high enough to say it's flat. What the modeling guys are saying is that it's not going to be, you're not going to see the curve even until you get hundreds and hundreds of miles up, if it even existed at all. And so the flat earthers probably shouldn't latch on to the weather balloon stuff as gospel as much as you have to look at that and then compare it to all the NASA footage, which shows severe curves, and then say, okay, it's not that the flat earthers are dead right on that, but NASA's absolutely lying through their teeth. So anyway, long way back to where I was. When I look out the airplane, no, I don't see a curve at all, and I'd like to see someone that does.
What about the famous Red Bull stunt?
Oh, good. You know what? Just for you, I will give this to you right now since we're on air. In fact, I send this picture to absolutely everybody that does this for me, and it's a side-by-side comparison. I did not make this; another flat earther did, and that is the Red Bull stuff, which that's what got the mainstream media play. You put that shot outside his capsule at 120,000 feet or 130,000 feet. I think it was 120. Compare that with the dog cam one that was taken in the UK. Right, one had a GoPro fisheye lens. If people don't know what a fisheye lens is, it's kind of like a peephole lens. When you look out your peephole in your door, your hallway isn't curved, but the lens is letting you see a curved hallway. Same thing applies with a GoPro lens to a lesser degree. And so what the picture I just sent here is 10,000 foot difference. One is perfectly flat. One looks like the Earth is only about 400 miles wide. So who's lying? I'm guessing the Red Bull guys are. And of course, because the mainstream media is the one that ran the story, because they ran that picture all over the place. They said, oh yeah, Red Bull jump. Red Bull gets the promotion. By the way, we're also showing the curvature of the Earth, even though it's exaggerated and it doesn't even make sense.
What are you going to do? Are you going to get your own balloon with your own GoPro with a camera that you are comfortable with, in what it's going to film and shoot? What am I personally
going to do to try to see if I can, how can I prove this to everybody?
Well, I that's what I would do if I was you.
Maybe, but at this point, because of the distance, I don't know if the weather balloons that we're doing now, because they cap out at about 130,000 feet. Maybe 140 if you're lucky. I don't think that's high enough to be conclusive for dead proof. The only thing that can really prove the flat Earth, other than of course finding the edge or finding the upper barrier, would be the Antarctic coastline, because the one thing on the map that absolutely is in opposition to the normal coastline. Normal coastline of Antarctica should only be a little bit slightly bigger around than Australia, but on a flat map, it is orders of magnitude larger. And so there are ways, and I've talked about this in other things. You can do it with two ships if you want to do it the slow way, or one ship and one plane. The problem is you've got to bypass GPS, and it's a tough call, because the Antarctic Defense Force protects everything way beyond the shoreline of Antarctica. So without the GPS, which is designed by the DoD, it's going to be tough. So we're still working on the ultimate test, which is why it's so exciting right now. Everybody's running around trying to figure out is there cracks in the armor that we can get into.
Well, I'm looking at the dog cam.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, this is some kind of crazy fisheye lens on the
Red Bull thing.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the dog cam, and I've got a straight edge up here. I've got a 24-inch monitor.
Yeah.
There's a curve there, brother.
Yeah, I know. You got to watch the footage. Even the best footage, it's weird. I don't know what lenses they use. You've probably seen them where they go convex to concave and they kind of warble around.
Sure.
And I'm trying to figure it. I know that snapshot was not taken when it was absolutely perfectly level. They probably should have, but the point was, it was just perspective in this case. Right. Yes, I know that one shows a little curve, but the point was, why is the other one getting the so exaggerated?
No doubt. Mark, thank you, man. I've got to get you back on. Let's continue this. And when you get some other stuff, bullets for that gun, I want to hear about it. Bring it on, and we'll do this thing, man. And I really had a great time tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
What's your website? Where's your radio show?
Enclosedworld.com, or just Google or take any search engine and type in Flat Earth Clues. You'll find it.
Yeah, you got to check out his YouTube videos. They're fantastic. And your radio show. Where can people go and check you out?
It's a Strange World on Truth Frequency Radio.
There you go. Mark Sargent, everybody. Mark, have a great Merry Christmas on this round planet of ours. Okay, brother? Santa's going to be coming over the horizon, man. Okay? All right. Hey, Mark, have a great weekend, man. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Mark Sargent, everybody. That was a great conversation. That was a great show, and nothing like learning a little something, something. Thank you, Mark. Fantastic. And he's over at Truth Frequency, and his websites are over at jimmychurchradio.com. And I'm sorry I was ignoring phone calls, and you guys got to understand, we were just knee deep in it. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left. If somebody wants to call in. I've got 9 minutes. I'll go ahead and take a phone call or two. Okay. Now, in a wrap up of what we just heard, I am not, and I will never on this show, okay, try to, pin somebody into a corner. That's not what you do here. This show is about learning, listening, open mind, open ears. I say to everybody all the time. Okay? People that learn something have their ears open. People that don't learn anything with a closed mind, they don't go anywhere in life. You're never going to learn anything. That's just the way it is. Let's go to the phones. I'll take a quick phone call. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, this is Nelson. I called the other day about the flat Earth theory.
Okay, Nelson, how you doing? Did you listen to the show tonight?
I did. I listened to it all the way through.
Okay, and so how you feeling?
I'm feeling exactly the same as I did before. I mean, yeah, he gave a great overlay of things that could possibly make sense, but I mean, they could either go one way or the other. I mean, I could understand being in the corner of being duped by everything. But there are certain things that I know you've experienced and that I've definitely experienced within my own consciousness that has nothing to do with anything I've been told my whole life. It has everything to do with, how I feel deep down within the core of my being and about how the universe is interacting with me.
Yes,
so,
and Nelson, you bring up good points, and what I want everybody to understand is I live my life with one thing: I question everything, man. I do, and the questions that the flat earthers are bringing up. Maybe the Earth isn't flat, but they're bringing up other questions that we need to go and look at. And it is about space travel, or have we been to the moon or not? Those are great examples. What's going on down in Antarctica? Why are we being kept away? Is there something there that we don't know? Or they're trying to keep from us? Could it be E.T.? Could it be an entrance to the hollow earth? Could the Nazis have built a secret underground base there? Is there other technology? There's all kinds of things that the flat earthers are bringing up that allow us to start to question everything else too as well. And that's the part of it that I really appreciate, and how the movement has caught. It's caught on because the questions that they bring up are, not all of them, but a lot of the questions that they bring up are difficult to answer. And that's what I love about it. And we will always learn if we listen. Listen to Mark, man. He brings up some great points. Some of it, because like I said at the beginning of the interview, it's my own eyeballs here, my own life experience that is tough for me to change when you've witnessed something for yourself. And that's the part where it gets hard for me to deal with. But there's the other aspects of it that are fascinating.
Yes, I mean, the one point I did want to bring up was he was saying, if if we are in a sphere, why isn't everything being thrown off of it? It's because the same principle in a car and in an airplane of being pressurized. We're in a pressurized bubble around a sphere. And when you're in a pressurized bubble, what happens? Everything stays where it's going to stay.
Sorry about that, Nelson. Everybody is begging for overtime, and I'm just wondering if we should. Yeah, I'm just wondering if we should do this. Okay, I'm going to go back to the phones. Nelson, thank you for the phone call.
All right, no problem.
Have a great night. Okay, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. This is Stacy.
Hey, Casey. How are you tonight? Did you listen to the show?
Oh, wonderful show, Jimmy. I was waiting for this for a long time.
And how you feeling now?
Jimmy, I have one. I want a quick opinion from you. Do you believe in remote viewing?
Remote viewing? Absolutely.
Yeah. So many people, they are doing researches about pyramid and other planets and stuff. Did anyone think about this, whether to remote view whether this earth is flat or not? That will be very easy.
Hey, you know what? Hey, KC, I have the right guy to do that, and I will see what I can do about getting some of that done. You, my man, are smart.
Yeah, the Farsight Institute, one of your guests, I was thinking about him. He was doing so many remote viewings, giving for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're speaking of Courtney Brown.
Yes.
And I will contact him. KC, I want you to have a great, wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow right here on the show.
Oh, Merry Christmas, Jimmy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, KC. All the best, my brother. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
What's up, Jimmy?
Who's this?
It's Jeremy, man.
Jeremy, how are you, man? You should be in radio.
It's been a long time, brother. I haven't talked to you in probably a year.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. How are you?
And I've heard that, too. All right. So I don't know if I subscribe to the theory you guys are talking about tonight, but did you guys talk about the pictures from space? How the Earth is round?
Right. Yeah, he not only did he address it, but it's addressed a lot and in his videos, too. And it's something that I haven't had a chance to go and look into myself, because I have to go and look at. But what he is saying, or what he has, I believe, and I've seen his videos and stuff enough, and Mark is really good at this. He's saying that the one view that we always see of the Earth is that one picture that we see all the time is a composite. And that it's the same one all the time, same cloud, same thing, same everything. So I haven't had a chance. I haven't had a chance to go and look at the thousands and thousands, not of images of the Earth, and to see if they're all the same one. I haven't had a chance to do that, but it's compelling. If it is, then you have to.
What's this theory as to why they? I mean, would try to make us think that it's one way and not the other. Well, I didn't hear that part. Why would they want to lie to us about that? I mean, what does it matter in the grand scheme if it's round or flat? I don't understand.
And you have to go back. I don't have the time to get into that right now, but we spent probably 15 or 20 minutes of the show tonight at the beginning about just that. So
taking the show back. Sorry, man.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So yeah, what I'm telling you is we did address that. So go and check that out. And it's a tough. That's one of the toughest things, not only for us, or not us, I should say. When you're on both sides of the fence, when you ask the question, well, why do this, and why deceive, and why the deception? Well, it's tough on both sides for that, because there's a multitude of reasons, and there isn't just one. Certainly, religion comes into play. That's one. Economy comes into play. That's another. Control of humanity comes into play, and I agree with all of those. I believe that we are being controlled, and I believe that. We are being lied to, and when religion comes into play, so it goes on.
Open-mindedness, good thing to be open-minded.
Absolutely, Jeremy. Yes, sir.
It's awesome if I can talk to you, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Jeremy. You behave.
All right, I will.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, brother.
Wow, I haven't talked to Jeremy in a while. Okay, that's I'm gonna wrap. I'll keep going if the phone calls start coming in. Somebody calls right now, I'll stay on the line. If not, I am going to wrap this show. I'm exhausted, man. You guys have no idea what it's like to have an intelligent conversation like that for so long. So you know what? There it goes. I cleared through the phone line. So let's just wrap this. Tomorrow night, Tony Angiola and Bill are.